One of the things to watch for when we are using a hobby bottler or a water jacketed tank, or if we're even going to use one of our vacuum filters and we're going to have it on a stove and we're going to keep it covered to maintain our syrup temperature, the thing we really need to watch for is condensation. So when we pull the top of this bottler off, you will see all this condensation that we have. So that condensation is actually water that is coming out of our syrup. The reason that this is important, when we are bottling small bottles and we get down to the last little bit of syrup that is in this device, the problem that we run into is this condensation water layers on top of our syrup and will not mix back in. So when we bottle the last few bottles, be mindful of the density of the syrup because of the condensation water that can be associated with the process of keeping it covered. Okay, it is a good practice when you start with your hobby bottler to document the temperature. We are working with just a mechanical thermostat, so it is not the most accurate device. So we have a turn dial over here on the side. You will hear the simple click when it kicks in or kicks out. So for this particular application, we've got it set. We're going to put a thermometer in here. We're going to check our temperature. For this application, we are going to be bottling glass, so we want our syrup temperature to be right around 190, and it looks like we have our thermostat level set for our syrup at 188.8, so we are acceptable. We are over the minimum temperature of 180 for bottling syrup. We are under the value of 200 degrees so that we are not generating sugar, sand, or niter in the syrup before we get it bottled. Okay, today we are going to bottle some syrup using the hobby bottler. Like we had mentioned earlier in another clip of the video, what we did prior to operation is we filled the hobby bottler up with water. We put in a thermometer to check the temperature. So what we did is we preset our dial for 190 degrees. And that way it's all taken care of. You can mark the spot, and then you know every time you plug it in that we need to be approximately right here on our dial to make 190 degrees inside of our kettle to maintain our syrup bottling temperature. The reason that I'm talking about 190 degrees, of course, our safest minimum temperature is 180 degrees. Today we're going to be bottling some glass, and we like to have the syrup about 190 to 195 when we bottle in glass. Glass absorbs a tremendous amount of heat, and we want to make sure that the syrup is hot enough going into the bottle. So a few things that we have is we are going to fill this pint glass container. The cap that we are going to be using is a 38 millimeter pour top. We want to make sure that that seal is in the cap. We want to make sure the bottles are at room temperature prior to bottling. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go over to our hobby bottler, and we are going to start the process of filling. We're going to open up the fill valve, and we are going to start to fill. Now, when we fill bottles, we want to make sure that we fill them all the way to the top. The shorter the headspace on this particular container, the less chance we have of a container of syrup spoiling. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill the container just about to the top of the threads. Okay, once we have the bottle filled up to the top of the threads, we are going to put our cap on the bottle. We're going to screw the cover on tight. We will be old school, so we are going to turn the bottle on their side. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That gets that syrup in that head and neck area of the bottle to make sure that we sanitize that cap. And because these are heat activated seals, after a period of 5 to 10 seconds, we are going to stand the bottle up to cool. So today we're going to be bottling a small plastic jug of maple syrup. So we want to make sure that the containers are at room temperature. We want to make sure that the seals are in the cap. Okay. The safest minimum temperature, of course, to bottle is going to be 180 degrees. For today's application, we are at 190. Please keep in mind, once the syrup is filtered, we do not want to go over 200 degrees because we can generate sugar, sand, and niter in our syrup, which will give it a cloudy appearance. So we are going to fill this container up, and we are going to fill it right up to the top of the threads. The shorter the amount of headspace in the container, the less chance that we're going to have a problem with a bottle of syrup. So what we're going to do is we're going to start the filling process. Okay, you can see we have the container filled right up to the top. Now we will put the cap onto the container. We're going to lay the container on its side for a brief period of time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We want to make sure we get that syrup into that head and neck area of that container to make sure it's sanitized. Once it's been on its side for several seconds, we're going to turn the bottle up to cool. Okay, so we filtered another batch of syrup using the mini fill or the filter bag holder. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove this. We did not use a filter bag or a pre-filter in this particular application. If you look down in the inside, you can see the sugar sand that is collected on the inside of the bag, and that's what was removed from the syrup.